I think most people would love the ability to talk with cats. But what if these cats kept interfering with your harem life by making it impossible for you to find love? And you unfortunately have no choice but to help them, otherwise you'll die. Well, that's exactly what happens to Kousaka Junpei, an ordinary high school boy who wakes up one morning and realizes that he can understand Nemesis, his family's cat. To make matters worse, Kousaka is deathly allergic to cats and doesn't want anything to do with them, despite his family absolutely adoring cats. The next day after school, Kousaka thinks back to how he kicked a can and accidentally broke a cat statue by making its head fall off. And although he doesn't believe in the supernatural, he's starting to suspect that the statue must have cursed him. So he gives the statue some cat food in hopes that this offering will end the curse. A monk arrives moments later and Kousaka immediately begs the monk to teach him everything he knows about the cat statue's curse, which makes the monk incredibly happy. Kousaka soon regrets this decision, however, as the monk simply won't shut up. Nemesis and Tama, the monk's cat, soon arrive to help Kousaka make sense of the curse. Tama explains that, in order for Kousaka to atone for breaking the statue of a cat deity, he must make use of his newfound ability of communicating with cats to fulfill the requests of 100 cats. If he does not atone properly, he will be transformed into a cat and die due to his allergy. And if anyone finds out about the curse, it'll get stronger and Kousaka will transform faster. The next day, Nemesis and Tama show up with 2 cats that have a request for Kousaka. He draws a line in the ground and tells them not to get any closer so his allergies won't act up. The 2 cats explain that there's a human in their neighborhood who's been traumatizing cats and they want it to stop. Feeling sorry for them, Kousaka reluctantly agrees to help. Later that day, Kousaka runs into Mizuno, his classmate who he has a crush on. And suddenly Kousaka doesn't feel so burdened by recent events. He then asks Mizuno what she bought at the mall, and she reveals that she bought a DVD about samurai gangsters. It turns out that she's a huge fan of macho manly guys like gangsters. This of course shocks Kousaka, but he still thinks she's cute anyways. Suddenly, Mizuno accidentally bumps into a gangster and the man starts berating her. Kousaka wants absolutely nothing to do with this situation. But he has no choice but to step in and defend Mizuno's honor by yelling at the man to leave her alone. Despite his tough guy act, Kousaka is sure that he's about to die. However, the gangster surprisingly apologizes and runs away crying. Mizuno thanks Kousaka and admits that he looked really cool just then. Kousaka and Mizuno stop at a park to talk when a cat suddenly shows up. Mizuno then hugs the cat so tightly that she begins crushing it. She explains that she absolutely loves cats, but her parents prefer dogs. That's when Kousaka realizes that his beloved Mizuno is the person that has been traumatizing the cats. Nemesis, Tama, and the 2 cats arrive to pressure Kousaka into telling Mizuno to stop traumatizing them. But despite this tense situation, Kousaka honestly just wishes Mizuno could embrace him as tightly as she does the cats. Nemesis and Tama rub up against Kousaka's leg, causing him to lose his temper and yell at them to leave him alone. Unfortunately, Mizuno mistakenly believes that he was talking to her and she runs away crying. Kousaka is absolutely crushed by this, but at least the cats are thankful to be freed from Mizuno's tight embrace. The next day at school, Kousaka is still heartbroken, but Mizuno surprisingly acts normally around him and apologizes for her actions of the previous day. Kousaka is happy that his life seems to be returning to normal, but his mood quickly sours when he walks by Nemesis and Tama after school, who remind him that he's got 99 more cat requests to fulfill before the curse can be lifted. The next day at school, Kousaka's class is preparing for the cultural festival, in which they will be doing a maid service. As a man of culture, Kousaka can't help but fantasize about his beloved Mizuno in a maid outfit. His fantasy is soon interrupted by Kanako, his childhood friend, which leads to them bickering as usual. But when Kousaka sees Tama outside the window, he grabs a roll of tape and throws it at him. He then tries to play this off as if it accidentally slipped out of his hand, and runs out of the classroom. Once outside, Nemesis and Tama introduce him to another cat in need of his help. Kousaka is irritated that cats are now even finding him at school, as he thought this would be his peaceful sanctuary. The cat explains that one of Kousaka's classmates has been feeding her, and she wants Kousaka to express her appreciation for the kind girl who fed her every day. Kousaka, of course, absolutely does not want to have to say or do something so embarrassing. But when the cat says that the girl is really kind and cute, Kousaka starts to fantasize about what this girl might look like, and suddenly doesn't feel so burdened by this request, until he realizes that his childhood friend, Kanako, is actually the girl who's been feeding the cat, which immediately crushes his fantasies. Kousaka spends the rest of the cultural festival being dragged around by Kanako and sulks about his misfortune. Things only get worse when Mizuno spots Kousaka and Kanako together and mistakenly believes that they're dating. When they later bicker again as usual, a bucket of water accidentally falls onto their heads, which understandably infuriates Kanako. Kousaka runs for his life as he curses out the curse for making him so unlucky. After escaping, Kousaka changes into dry clothes and returns to the classroom. Moments later, Mizuno walks in with a beautiful girl by her side. The whole class is awestruck by the woman's beauty, but are even more shocked when they realize that she is Kanako. After school, Kousaka tells Kanako that the stray cat she's been feeding has moved away, but he thinks that the cat really appreciated all the care Kanako gave her. She smiles and calls him an idiot before heading home. The three cats, who were watching this whole time, are satisfied with how Kousaka fulfilled the request. Sometime later, Kousaka is talking with Nemesis and Tama when he runs into a female postal worker climbing over a fence. She is Chizuru, a college student and postal worker, who has a horrible sense of direction and accidentally got lost. Kousaka decides to help her finish her deliveries, while Tama decides to run around town and see if any cats are in need of Kousaka's help. Kousaka is incredibly annoyed by this situation, but something mysteriously changes his mind, and he thinks that maybe helping people isn't so bad after all. While helping her out with her deliveries, Kousaka is constantly stopped by cats asking for his help. Suddenly, Kousaka spots his friends and hides behind Chizuru, but at that moment, Kanako spots him and gets angry, so he runs away, only to run into his sister at the supermarket, so he's forced to run away again. Chizuru is shocked that Kousaka is so popular with women and embraces him teasingly. But just at that moment, Mizuno turns the corner and witnesses this. As usual, Mizuno misunderstands the situation and immediately runs away before Kousaka has a chance to explain. As they part ways and a depressed Kousaka heads back home, Chizuru wonders if she should have acted cuter for him. The next day at school, Kousaka tries to clear up the misunderstanding with Mizuno, but she reassures him that he doesn't need to explain himself, because she knows he's already dating Kanako. Unfortunately, Kanako arrives at that moment, and angrily drags him away before he can respond to Mizuno. At that same moment, Nagi, Mizuno's senpai, sees that she's sad, and vows to destroy Kousaka, the man who hurt his precious Mizuno. The next day at school, Kousaka finds a letter in his desk and is thrilled to have received what he assumes to be a love letter. But when he reads it, he quickly realizes that it's actually a formal challenge request by Nagi, who tells Kousaka to meet him after school. Later that day, Nagi waits patiently by the sea for a Kousaka that will never come. 3 days later, Kousaka has completely forgotten about the challenge, until a pissed-off Nagi comes charging through the school and challenges Kousaka once again to a duel for Mizuno. Kanako begins to fantasize that if Nagi were to win the challenge, she'd have Kousaka all to herself to be her slave for life. Nagi suddenly collapses to the ground, as it turns out he developed a fever from waiting for Kousaka all that time. Mizuno, Kanako and Kousaka bring Nagi to his house and are shocked to learn that he's from a gangster family. Mizuno is thrilled to be in the presence of so many manly men, but the two others want nothing more than to get out of there as fast as possible. The girls are then taken to the baths, while Kousaka is told to sit back and wait. A cat suddenly appears and asks Kousaka if he's the good-for-nothing guy who's allergic to cats. Kousaka is annoyed to learn that Tama is still going around town telling other cats about him, but he agrees to listen to the cat's request anyways. He initially imagines that the cat will ask him to do shady gangster stuff, but the cat simply requests for Kousaka to help his owner fall in love. Before he can respond, Kousaka is taken to Nagi's room and finds him with a sword drawn. He challenges Kousaka once more to fight for Mizuno's honor. But when lightning suddenly strikes, Nagi falls onto Kousaka, and he realizes that Nagi is actually a girl who's terrified of lightning. Nagi begins to cry and complains that she's always picked on for being a tomboy because she's tall and flat and not cute. Kousaka is confused because he thought Nagi liked Mizuno, but she explains that she just admires beautiful things. Kousaka then locks Nagi in a sarcophagus that she has in her room for some reason and shelters her from the lightning. Meanwhile, Nagi's head servant overhears Kanako and Mizuno talking in the baths about how dangerous it is for a teenage boy and girl to be in the same room together. Upon hearing this, the servant immediately panics and sprints to protect his master's innocence. At that same moment, Kousaka promises Nagi that he won't tell anyone about her phobia, and that although he's not much help, he'll stay with her until she feels better. Nagi suddenly crawls out of the sarcophagus and asks Kousaka what type of girls he likes. A few seconds later, the servant kicks the door down right onto Kousaka, much to Nagi's distress. On his way back home, Kousaka apologizes to the cat for not being able to fulfill his request, but the cat tells him not to worry about it, because it's been solved already. The next day, Kousaka is annoyed to find Nagi clinging to him in class, despite being in entirely different grades. A few days later, Mizuno asks Kaneko if she's dating Kousaka, to which Kaneko replies that she would never want to date a man like him. Mizuno is relieved that Kousaka is single after all, but she suddenly remembers seeing him with Chizuru and asks Kaneko and Nagi if it's normal for a guy to be hugging a girl he's not dating. They immediately become furious as they know she's referring to Kousaka. Mizuno tries to calm them down by offering them sweets, but realizes that she mistakenly brought dog treats to school. The girls grab the dog treats and give them to Kousaka, who's grateful but also just very confused about this whole situation. After school, Mizuno follows Kousaka home to warn him not to eat the dog treats. Meanwhile, Kousaka stops by the cat statue when he suddenly sees a mysterious girl wearing his school uniform. She tells him that she can sense an evil spirit attached to him and that she knows he's cursed. Mizuno is nearby hiding behind a car and is confused about who this girl is or what she means by curse. But before giving her a chance to say anything more, Kousaka immediately runs away as if he just remembered to clear his browser history. The next day, Kousaka has no choice but to look for the twin-tailed girl to find out what she knows about his curse. Suddenly, she appears behind him and hands him a letter. He's afraid it might be another challenge, but is pleasantly surprised to find that it's actually a love letter. Moments later, the girl returns and snatches the letter out of his hand. She tells him she hates him and orders him to meet her after school. At the temple after school, the girl confesses that she knows all about Kousaka's curse because she's more spiritually inclined than most people. She threatens Kousaka to leave Kodone alone, otherwise she'll tell everyone about the curse and make him turn into a cat much faster. The real Kodone arrives moments later and confronts Akari, her twin sister. Kodone realizes that her whole life, her sister has been sabotaging her relationships and slaps her. Akari explains that she was just afraid of losing her and runs away crying. She accidentally trips and falls down the stairs, but Kousaka leaps in and barely manages to save her in time. Afterwards, the twins apologize and Kodone promises to put away her fan fiction blog for a while, but asks Kousaka if it's okay to keep stalking him. She admits that she loves men who are plagued by misfortune, so some of you viewers might have a shot with her. Because they are the daughters of the monk, the curse doesn't affect them, so both twins agree to help Kousaka cure his curse before it's too late. The next day, while walking around town, Kousaka runs into Mizuno. She asks him about the twin-tailed girl he was talking to the other day, and he explains that it's just the daughter of the nearby monk. She's relieved to hear this, but unfortunately, two cats are bickering in front of Kousaka and he can't hear a thing that Mizuno is saying. Annoyed, he yells at them to shut the hell up, which startles Mizuno and even her dogs. They all run away in tears, and Kousaka is of course once again absolutely crushed. The twins arrive moments later with ice cream and offer him some. They sit on a bench and eat ice cream together while Kousaka sobs quietly. Chizuru then passes by and spots him hanging out with the twins. She then runs into Nagi and informs her that if she's looking for Kousaka, he's hanging out in a nearby park with twin girls. Furious, Nagi's servant cocks his gun. At that same time, Kaneko runs into Mizuno and finds her crying. She immediately knows that Kousaka has something to do with this. His peaceful afternoon with the twins abruptly comes to an end when a crowd of his furious friends come charging right at him and proceed to beat him up savagely, a sight that excites the twins. Afterwards, he explains the misunderstanding to Mizuno, who quickly forgives him. Sometime later, Kousaka returns home only to find the twins in his house, gossiping with his mother and sister. Kodone even tells Kousaka's mom that she'll soon be joining the family once Kousaka marries her. He then grabs both twins and drags them out of the house. They reveal that they came to his house because they found a cat in need of Kousaka's help. This cat is weak, lazy, and can't even catch a bird, so he desperately wants to become stronger. Kousaka reluctantly agrees to help him train and takes him out on a morning jog the very next day. There, he runs into Mizuno and Nagi while the cat hides. He talks with the girls for a while and completely forgets about the cat until the next morning. Kousaka apologizes to the cat, but when he runs into Mizuno again, he ends up ignoring the cat all over again. Frustrated, the cat decides to take revenge on Kousaka. He calmly walks into the woman's changing room and grabs Mizuno's bra. Later that day, Kousaka runs into Mizuno at the mall and reaches into his bag to return something that she had lent him, but accidentally pulls out her bra instead. Mizuno is completely embarrassed by this and runs away crying, and Kousaka once again finds himself completely crushed because of a cat's interference. When Kousaka confronts the cat, he apologizes and explains that he was just jealous of Kousaka and Mizuno being all lovey-dovey. It turns out that the cat was rejected by a female cat because he was too weak and out of shape. But she told him that if he could prove his manliness, or I guess, his catliness, to her, she would maybe consider dating him. Kousaka understands his feelings and promises to whip him into shape. They spend the next few days training intensely, and by the end, the cat becomes a swole Chad. At school, Mizuno asks Kaneko and Nagi if it's normal for guys to be interested in girls' underwear. They immediately know that she's talking about Kousaka again, and furiously run throughout the school to find him. Nagi tells him that if he's interested in girls' underwear, he should have just asked for hers, and she would have gladly given it to him. But Kousaka swears that a cat stole Mizuno's bra and put it in his bag, and of course they refuse to believe such a ridiculous lie, until Kousaka's friend remembers that he actually saw a cat going into the girls' changing room. And just like that, all is forgiven, and they leave Kousaka with his cheeks unclapped. Later, Kousaka explains the misunderstanding to Mizuno, and she forgives him again. He's supposed to be cursed, but I'm starting to think there's nothing he can't get away with. At the end of the day, the cat was able to find love, and hopes Kousaka will be able to do the same. Some time passes, and Kousaka decides to get a part-time job working with Chizuru as a postal worker in order to help pay for repairs to the cat statue, in hopes that this will lessen the effects of the curse. While out on one of his deliveries, he helps a cat out of a tree. Mizuno happens to pass by and notices this. However, when she sees him talking to the cats as if they can understand him, and overhears him mention the curse again, she thinks back to when she heard Akari also say something about a curse. As Kousaka leaves, Mizuno begins to wonder if Kousaka truly is cursed after all. Upon returning to the postal office, Kousaka realizes that he's grown a pair of cat ears, and immediately calls the twins for help. They somehow manage to sneak him out of the postal office, without any of his co-workers noticing. Once in the clear, they try to get to the bottom of why the curse is suddenly taking effect much faster than expected, and soon come to realize that Mizuno has found out about the curse. Kousaka meets up with Mizuno at the mall, and tries to convince her that he isn't cursed. Unfortunately, Nagi arrives at that moment, and accidentally pulls Kousaka's hat off, revealing his cat ears to everyone. And after an awkward silence, an embarrassed Kousaka runs away. Kousaka's other friends suddenly arrive in costumes, because there's apparently a costume contest going on at the mall right now. Thanks to this fortunate coincidence, they believe Kousaka's cat ears were actually just a part of his costume. Mizuno, however, is not quite convinced and chases after Kousaka. The twins chase after him as well, and soon find his clothes littered all over the streets. By the time they catch up to him, Kousaka has already turned into a cat, and is quickly losing consciousness. Mizuno picks him up, unaware that he is the cat. Meanwhile, Kousaka feels himself ascending to heaven, but he's happy to at least be dying in Mizuno's sweet embrace. At that moment, all the cats that Kousaka has helped arrive to see him depart this world. Seeing all these cats reminds Mizuno that Kousaka has actually always been beloved by cats. This realization convinces her that there's no way Kousaka could actually be cursed by cats. All of a sudden, Kousaka leaps out of her arms and transforms back into a human, since Mizuno doesn't believe in the curse anymore. Unfortunately, Kousaka is butt naked, and his friends arrive just in time to see this. He tries to play this off as if he chose to be naked for the costume contest, but no one seems to buy it. And although everything goes back to normal after that, the curse still hasn't been lifted, and misfortune continues to follow Kousaka everywhere he goes. Thank you so much for watching, and see you all again in the next video.